Lesson 2, the first declension, plural. Hi everybody, welcome back to Lenny's Latin class. Today we're on Lesson 2, which is on page 10. In the last lesson, we learned all about the singular forms of the first declension, and now we're going to learn about the plural forms of the first declension. In section 29, you'll see a chart, and along the left-hand side, we have the name of each case, abbreviated though. The letter N stands for nominative, G stands for genitive, D stands for dative, AC stands for accusative, AB stands for ablative. Okay, on the first line here, we have the nominative case, and we have the word portai, which again is nominative, but it's nominative plural. Okay, the singular form is porta, P-O-R-T-A. Here we're looking at the nominative plural form, so it's portai. If you look in the right-hand column, you'll notice that the ending is AE. That's a diphthong that sounds like I. Now, if you remember what we talked about in the last lesson, you might be asking the question, why is this ending the same as two other endings? Okay, we learned last time that the genitive singular ends with the AE ending, and the dative singular ends with the AE ending. So what that means is that nominative plural, genitive singular, and dative singular, all three have the same ending, AE. Is that confusing? Well, yes, it's a little confusing at first, but once you get used to it, you'll start to be able to use context to understand which form it is. Okay, we'll learn more about that as we go along, but the basic idea here is using the other words around a word, you'll be able to see how that word fits into the sentence, and you'll know what case and number it is. So if you have a Latin sentence that says, the gates are large, then you would use portai. The portai are large, okay, because we use the nominative case for words that are the subject of a sentence. Okay, on the next line we have portarum. That's the genitive plural form of porta, and the ending here is A-R-U-M. So portarum means of the gates. Okay, so if you had a sentence in Latin that said, the handles of the gates are broken, then you have more than one gate possessing something. You have the handles of the gates, and they're being possessed not by one gate, but by more than one gate. So you'll need to say of the gates, plural, and that would be portarum. Okay, that's how you would use that in a sentence. Next we have the dative plural form, portis. That's going to mean to the gates or for the gates. If you say in Latin, I bought new handles for the gates, then you could use the word portis in that sentence to mean for the gates. Next we have the accusative plural form, portas. Notice the as ending. If you have a sentence in Latin that says, the enemy destroyed the gates, in that sentence, the word gates is the direct object. You have someone doing an action to not just one gate, but to more than one gate. So you need the direct object form to be plural, and that's portas. And finally, we have the ablative plural form of porta, which is portis. In Latin, the ablative case has lots of different uses, which we'll learn about as we go. But for now, just keep in mind that the ending is is, and also notice that the is ending is the same as the dative plural ending. So the word portis is both dative plural and ablative plural. Okay, let's move on to section 30 and look at our new vocabulary for this lesson. First we have amicitia, which means friendship. In English we have words like amicable that are related to this word. Next we have littera, which means letter. In English we have related words like literary and literatur. This particular noun is interesting because it can be used a couple of different ways. In the singular, it can mean a letter of the alphabet. But if it's plural, in other words, if you say literae, as in letters, that can mean a letter like the kind of letter you write to someone. But when you use it that way, in the plural, it doesn't mean more than one letter like the kind you write to someone. It means just one letter. So it's the kind of noun that you can use as in a plural form, but it just means one singular thing. Next, we have the word nauta, which means sailor. In English, we have related words like nautical. If you read my book, Getting Started with Latin, you know the word nauta very well. Next, we have victoria, which means victory. Then we have the word known, which means not. And finally, a verb, sunt, which means they are. So now that you know all the forms of the first declension, what you can do is you can practice writing out all the forms of a given noun. Say, for example, the noun nauta, which means sailor. You can make a little chart with the left-hand column being singular, the right-hand column being plural, and you can go down the left-hand side and say nauta, nautai, nautai, nautam, nauta, with a macron over the A. Then the plural forms, nautai, nautarum, nautis, nautas, and nautis. Make sure you get the macrons in the right places. And as you write out the forms like that, you'll get more familiar with them, and it will aid you in remembering the different forms, especially as a beginner. Also, as I mentioned before, another excellent way to remember this stuff is to actually speak the language, to say things in Latin, while in your mind you imagine images of what you're saying, and then say the words with your mouth, and that becomes a very strong learning experience. Okay, let's move on now to the top of page 11, section 31, model sentences. Okay, in the last lesson we learned the word est, which means is. Now we're going to learn more about the word sunt, which means are, as in they are. Okay, est and sunt are the same, except est is singular and sunt is plural. Okay, so model sentence number 1 says, porta est alta. Okay, porta means gate, and it's singular. Est means is, and alta means high. So, porta est alta means the gate is high. Remember that in Latin there is no word for the. Another thing to take note of is that the word est can mean he is, she is, or it is. In this particular sentence, the word est simply means is, because the word porta is the subject of the sentence. If the word porta were not there, if it just said est alta, we could translate that as it is high. Okay, so the word est can contain the pronoun and the verb. It can contain he and is, or she and is, or it and is. So est can mean he is, she is, or it is, but if there's already another word to be the subject of the sentence, we don't need to use the pronoun. Like in number 1, porta is the subject, so we don't need to say the gate, it is high. We just leave out the word it. Okay, so the word est can simply mean is, or we can also translate it as having a pronoun included in it. And the word sunt is the same way. In model sentence number 2, portae sunt altae. Okay, portae is the word for gates. It's nominative plural. And sunt means are. Okay, so portae sunt, the gates are. And then altae means high. Notice that the adjective altae is describing portae, or in grammatical terms, we say it's modifying portae. So notice that the adjective altae has to have the same ending as portae. It has to agree with the noun it's describing. You can't say portae sunt alta. That doesn't make grammatical sense. Okay, this is what we call agreement. Notice also that if the word portae were not here, if the sentence just said sunt altae, we could translate that as they are high. Okay, the word sunt means they are, or it can just mean are. If there's no other word to be the subject, we can translate it as if it has the pronoun they included in it. Or in a sentence like this, there's already another word to be the subject, portai. So we don't need to use the word they. We can just say the gates are high. We don't need to say the gates, they are high. So keep in mind here that est can have a pronoun, he, she, or it, along with the verb is, and sunt can have a pronoun, they, along with the word are. The key here is to see if the sentence already has another word functioning as the subject. Again, this is a good chance for you to do some speaking. Close your eyes and imagine a large gate in the front of a city and say things like, porta est alta, the gate is high. Imagine a gate that's very short and say, porta non est alta. Imagine a set of two gates and say, portae sunt altae, the gates are high. Imagine a set of gates that are high and just say, sunt altae, they are high. There's a sentence without a subject. You're translating sunt as they are. Likewise, you can imagine one gate and say, est alta, it is high. Okay, so take a few minutes to close your eyes and actually speak the Latin language. Say things in Latin, and if you do this every day, I promise you, you will make rapid progress. It will help you build a sense of intimacy and familiarity with the language. Okay, let's move on now to section 33, and let's do some translation. In number 1, we have nautarum. That's the genitive plural form of the word nauta, which means sailor. So that means of the sailors. If you have a boat that's belonging to more than one sailor, you could say that's the boat of the sailors, which would be nautarum. Number 2, victoriarum. Okay, that means of the victories. That's the genitive plural form of the noun victoria. So if you had a Latin sentence that said the glory of the victories, you could use the word victoriarum to mean of the victories. The glory is being possessed not by just one victory, but by more than one victory. Number 3, literarum. That's genitive plural, yet again, and it can mean of the letters, as in of the letters of the alphabet, or if it's the kind of letter you write to someone, it could mean of the letter. Again, that's the kind of word that you can use in a plural form, but it means a singular thing, just one letter. Let's skip over number 4 for now and go on to number 5. Number 5 says, victoria nautarum. Okay, victoria means victory. That's nominative singular. And nautarum is genitive plural. The genitive case is used for possession. So the victory is being possessed by more than one sailor. So it's the victory of the sailors. In number 6, we have the word ripas. That's the noun ripa, which means the bank of a river. And it's accusative plural. So this could be the direct object in a sentence. We don't really have any context to put it in. Again, some of these forms are just for practice. They're just giving us these forms to give us a chance to work with the forms and think about them. Let's omit number 7 and 8, and let's go on to number 9. Longis ripis. Both longis and ripis have the is ending. So this could be dative plural or ablative plural. The word longis means long, and ripis means banks of a river. So if it's dative, it could mean to the long banks or for the long banks. If it's ablative, it could mean a lot of things. By means of the long banks. There are a lot of different things it could mean if it's ablative. So basically, it's long banks, and it could be dative plural or ablative plural. Number 10 is next. Parvae portae. Okay, the word parvae is a form of the adjective parva, which means small. And the word portae is a form of the word gate, which is porta. And when you see a first declension noun with the AE ending, it could be one of three things. It could be nominative plural, genitive singular, or dative singular. We don't know which one it is. They're just giving us this form here to practice with. So if it's nominative plural, it could mean small gates. If it's genitive singular, it could mean of the small gate. If it's dative singular, it could mean to or for a small gate. Moving on to number 11, we get a complete sentence. Ripai sunt latai. Okay, ripai is a form of the noun ripa, which means bank. Sunt means they are, and latai means wide. So this sentence says, the banks are wide. Two things to notice. Number one, latai and ripai agree with each other. They have the same ending. When you have an adjective describing a noun, the adjective has to match with the same ending as the noun it describes. That's called agreement. The other thing to notice is that sunt is plural because ripai is plural. Again, that's agreement. So the banks are, it wouldn't make any sense to say ripai est. That would be like saying the banks is. Okay, so we need sunt, the banks are. Yet another thing to notice, I guess that's three things, is that if the word ripai were not here, we could use the pronoun that's included in sunt. We could say they are wide, but we don't need to do that because we have a separate word to be the subject of the sentence. Ripai is the subject, so the banks are wide. Number 12 is next. Viai sunt longai et latai. Okay, viai is a form of the noun via, which means road or way. It's nominative plural. And then we have the verb sunt here again. So the roads are, and then we have a couple of adjectives, long and wide. So number 12 says the roads are long and wide. Again, notice that viai is plural, so longai and latai, they also have to be plural. They have to agree with the noun they're modifying. Also, viai is plural, so sunt needs to be plural. It would be wrong to say viai est, the roads is. No, we need to say the roads are, viai sunt. Also keep in mind that if the word viai were not here, we could translate sunt as they are. We could say they are long and wide. So remember again that est and sunt can be translated with a pronoun included in that word. You have to look at if there's a separate word to be the subject or not. Moving on to 13. Gallia et Helvetia sunt terrae. Okay, Gallia and Helvetia are the names of places. And then et means and, sunt means are, as in they are. And the word terrae is a form of the noun terra, which can mean land, country, things like that. Let's translate it as country. So number 13 says, Gallia and Helvetia are countries. Notice again the agreement. Gallia and Helvetia together form two things. So we need a plural verb, sunt. Also notice that terrae is plural because it's modifying two countries. So again, just take notice of the agreement you see between nouns and verbs and between nouns and adjectives. Number 14, provinciae sunt non magnae. Provinciae is a form of the noun provincia, which means province. Sunt is the verb, that means they are. Magnae means large or great, and non means not. Put it all together, and you get the provinces are not large. Let's omit number 15. And I want to finish up this lesson by talking a little bit about section 34. This is the section of the lesson where you would do Latin composition. That's when you take an English sentence and you turn it into Latin. You can write out these exercises if you want to, but what I would mainly like you to concentrate on is the spoken aspect of the language. So let's quickly examine a couple of these items here in section 34. Number 2 says, of the small countries. I'd like you to try to process this in your head with the purpose being to actually say the words. So of the small countries, if you're going to say that in Latin, you need the genitive case because the genitive case shows possession. So of the countries would be terrarum. You need the arum ending. And to put the word small with it, you need the word parva, and it has to be the same ending. So parvarum, terrarum is what you would say. Let's take a look. Let's take a look also at number 4. For the friendship of the provinces. Okay, if you're going to say for the friendship of something, you need to have the dative case. And the word for friendship is amicitia. If you put it in the dative case, it will have the AE ending. So you'd say amicitii. That's for the friendship. For the part about of the provinces, you need the genitive case because you're going to show possession. So the word for province is provincia. And to say of the provinces, you'd need to make it genitive plural. So that would be provinciarum. So for the friendship of the provinces would be amicitii provinciarum. Number 5, the victory of Helvetia is great. For the word victory, you'd say victoria. Of Helvetia, well, you'd need to take the word Helvetia and put it in the genitive singular. So far that would give us Victoria Helvetii. Then you need the word est, which means is. And then great would be magna. And of course you'll have to make it agree with the word victory. So you'll say Victoria Helvetii est magna. Okay, you can't say Victoria Helvetii est magnis. That wouldn't make any sense. The word in Latin for great has to match up with the word for victory. Okay, again, we're not going to write out these exercises. We're going to focus on the spoken aspect. So I would encourage you, now that it's the end of the lesson, to take some time and practice verbally with the different nouns and verbs that you've learned in this lesson. And as you do, you can use the Latin composition section of the lesson to give you ideas, that is, little cues of sentences you might want to make up. Number 7, for instance, you could look at that and use it as an idea. And then you could close your eyes and imagine banks of a river, and then you could say, ripae non sunt altae. Okay, the banks are not high. And in your mind, imagine a river with banks that are not high, banks that are kind of low. And so what's the point of that? The point is to say things in Latin while in your mind you see a movie of what's going on. You see the images in your mind and you say the words with your mouth. And in this way, you really develop a connection. You develop an increased sense of familiarity with the language. So take some time and make up sentences. Close your eyes. See the images in your mind. See the actions, the images, while you say the words in Latin. And if you do that every day, you'll be sure to make rapid progress. So that's it for Lesson 2. We'll see you in the next lesson.